What is up, guys? This is Nishi coming at you guys with another Market Watch episode. There has been a fair bit of movement on the market recently as people are all talking about what's going to be the next best deck of the format. So between all the different combo decks and Guard Dragons and Dragunity, each deck has been kind of hyped up in their own way. Also, people are looking at what decks are going to be strong in upcoming formats over the next 6 months to a year or so, with people taking a look at decks like Fire Fist or like Tenyi. And as a result, we've seen a lot of price changes with people hoarding different cards, wanting to build their next deck of choice in the highest possible rarity. So today what we're going to do is look at a bunch of cards that have been hyped up recently to make you guys as aware as possible, whether you guys are looking to pick up cards for your next deck, or you're looking to sell cards that have been sitting in your binder for a while. Let's get started. Alright, so first up, let's talk about Boxia Brightness of the Yang Zing. This card is a level 8 synchro monster that does require the non-tuner monster used to synchro summon it to be a Wyrm. This card is being talked about as an extra deck option in Tenyi, as a new deck that does play Wyrm monsters, as it can be situationally made in order to remove problem cards from your opponent's field. In my opinion, this card isn't absolutely necessary in Tenyi. It's more something that is a very viable option if you do need that spot removal, but as an effect monster, it's not something that you're going to be going into super consistently, so it's only going to see that like situational use. Also, at the moment, Tenyi aren't really looking like a competitive archetype. They're not going to have a really big impact on the competitive meta. Obviously, that's something that could change if the deck were to get new support, but as of now, that's not really looking like something that's going to happen. So Ultimate Rare First Edition Boxias were actually bought out very recently, and the cheapest available price on TCG Player at the moment is $17. However, the current market price is only $6, and there are already 26 copies listed available on the market at the time I'm making this video. So this really isn't likely to be a price increase that is going to last. I believe that people are just going to gradually post their copies up for sale online, and it's going to drag the price back down. Because I believe that Tenyi aren't going to be a strong meta deck, I do actually believe that the price of this card is going to fall back down fairly quickly and settle at between $8 to $10 for a single copy. The other thing to remember is that there are two secret rare prints, the original Duelist Alliance prints and the Megaton reprint, that are available for only like $1 or so. So if Tenyi is a deck that you want to play, I would definitely recommend going for that secret rare option that is still very beautiful. Alright, so next up, let's take a look at two cards, one being Flamvel Guard and the other being Carboneddon. So these two cards are used in conjunction with Soul Eating Oviraptor. You normal summon the Oviraptor to dump Carboneddon, banish Carboneddon to summon Flamvel Guard from the deck and synchro summon into Ib. Then you can search for World Legacy Guard Dragon and you start off your whole Guard Dragon combo. This is a very standard combo that does open Guard Dragon plays in a lot of different combo decks, so it's definitely something that you guys should at least be aware of. Anyways, Dual Terminal Flamvel Guard has actually jumped up really high in price recently. It's currently sitting around like $8 to $10 for this random vanilla monster. It's just a level 1 tuner, right? Which is actually really high considering that you can get like a super rare or a common printing for maybe like 25 cents. The other thing that I am going to consider when saying that the $10 price point is high is the fact that Flamvel Guard isn't really likely to see play beyond this format, beyond this combo. The last time that this card saw play was in Dragon Ruler format, when you could search it with Blaster and then you could summon it and then you synchro with another Dragon Ruler to make Crimson Blader. But like, honestly, this card isn't going to see very much play. It's not going to see regular play in upcoming formats. I don't know if we're ever actually going to see a time where Flamvel Guard is even used again. And because of that, I would very highly recommend selling this card and just playing with a lower rarity version, because the price is only really going to drop from here. On the other hand, we do have Carboneddon, which only has one print available from Dragons of Legend. As I said, Carboneddon is a necessary card in order to perform the specific Soul Eating Oviraptor combo. As a result, Carboneddon, despite only being a super rare in an all hollow set, is actually a $7 to $8 card at the moment. And whether or not you want to pay that price is up to you. Personally, I don't really see the card being reprinted anywhere anytime soon, maybe in something like an upcoming OTS pack. So if you do want to play the deck, it's something that you're probably going to have to like suck it up for and just pay up for the card. On the other hand, this is definitely something that I think a lot of players are actually going to have sitting around in bulk. Like, I personally had 3 copies just lying around in like a random pile on my desk. So I definitely, if you have that like hollow bulk, maybe you opened a bunch of Dragons of Legends packs way back when, definitely shuffle through and see if you can find a few copies and sell them while they are still high. Next, let's take a look at some Fire Fist cards. So just yesterday we had the complete Fist of the Gadgets set completely spoiled for us, and 2 of the cards that were the most hyped up as a result of those spoilers are Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Dragon and Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Horse Prince. Each of these cards is an important combo piece in the deck, allowing it to extend. Dragon lets you send 2 face-up fire formations from your field to the graveyard to special summon a Fire Fist from your graveyard, whereas Horse Prince lets you summon a level 3 fire monster from your deck when it's special summoned. Honestly, it's really unfortunate that these 2 cards weren't reprinted in Fist of the Gadgets because they are 2 of the more important combo pieces in the deck. Also, these 2 cards are from older sets, so they are harder to find, and they actually haven't been reprinted outside of their original printings in Cosmo Blazer. So Dragon is currently like a ridiculous $17 for a super rare copy, and Horse Prince is around $15. These are 2 cards that I don't really see being reprinted anytime soon. They'd be easy choices to include as something like OTS commons, or they could be reprinted in something like a Battles of Legend type set, but those sets aren't really something that are going to be coming out for quite a while. So the price of these cards and whether or not they're worth it really depends on the deck's performance. If the deck does become a top contender, maybe like a tier 1.5 deck, I could easily see these cards staying and floating at around $20 to $25 a piece until they got that really much needed reprint. However, more realistically, I do think that the deck is just going to be like a decent tier 2 option, and that ultimately after the hype has died down, the price of each of these is going to settle at around $8 to $10. Alright, so on the other hand, there are a few other Fire Fist cards that I do want to talk about. So Ulti Bear, Tiger King, and Tanky are Fire Fist cards that have gradually increased in price ever since Fist of the Gadgets was announced and we knew that it was going to have Fire Fist support in there. A lot of people were pretty hyped up for the new support, and while the new cards are good, it's currently looking like Bear and Tiger King aren't cards that are really going to see very much play in the new version of Fire Fist. I mean, like, Bear used to be a strong card. It was good in a slower format, like back when Yugioh was a very dominant deck, but in the current meta, it's just a bit too slow and doesn't provide quite enough additional utility. Also, I believe Tiger King is like an option in new Fire Fist, but it's not really something that the deck goes into very often. It's not really necessary, and honestly, it's something that there are just so many better options to make. So currently, Tiger King is currently like a $12 ultimate rare, whereas Bear is anywhere from $20 to $25. I know that I talked about Bear in a previous video, and I believe I recommended it as a card that should be sold, so I do hope that you guys listened to me and were able to get as much value from it as possible. On the other hand, Tanky is a card that we knew was going to jump up in price and would be relevant either way as a definite staple for the deck, since it's essentially just like a Rhoda. It lets you search for any monster in the archetype basically, well, almost any, level 4 or lower. We have seen Tanky hit some pretty high price points before. So like there were different Beast Warrior decks that were hyped up. So we saw like Bujins, and then we saw Zodiac, and this is just like another round of hype as Tanky is currently sitting at like $60 to $65 for a single copy. Personally, I wouldn't be willing to spend almost like $200 for 3 copies of a card like this, especially when Tanky is being reprinted in Fist of the Gadgets, and you're probably going to be able to pick up a whole playset of the card for less than $1. If you want to play the deck in its highest rarity, then by all means, like, go ahead. Since the way that things are going, we're probably going to get another good Beast Warrior archetype come out in another 5 years or so, but personally, I'll be just fine playing with super rare copies. Alright, so we're going to take a brief second here to talk about for hire, because I want to include a note for you guys as my viewers. If you are holding onto for hire cards, you should absolutely be selling them now. Beat is currently like a $10 card, while Mayhem is like anywhere from $5 to $6 or maybe $7. However, the deck still hasn't had any impact on the meta since it came out, and I don't think it's going to start having one anytime soon. At the end of August, let's think about this. Everyone's gonna be busy opening mega tins. There's gonna be promos, and people are gonna be looking for cards like Dangers and Thunder Dragons and Cyber Dragons, and all of the for hire cards are going to be left forgotten on the side. That being said, I definitely think that you will be able to pick up the for hires for like ridiculously cheap. Honestly, they shouldn't be like more than a couple dollars or so. That being said, I definitely think that you should be selling your for hires now and then just buying them back later. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I found 3 copies of Beat and 3 copies of Mayhem in a pile of cards from a collection that I had bought a little while ago. The first thing I did when I found them was look up the best buy list price to sell them for, and then I shipped them out like right away. I actually got like $8 Canadian for each copy of Beat, and then $3 per copy for Mayhem for hire, which seems like a relatively low price, especially considering what they're at now. But compared to what the price is going to be in a month, this was a great deal for me. It also meant that I didn't have to go through the effort of finding someone who was looking to play for hire and was also willing to put out that amount of money for them. At this point, I think that everyone's pretty certain that the cards are going to be reprinted in the mega tins, so I would definitely try to move them for whatever value you can while you're able to, and then just buying them back up after. Okay, so Dragunities are currently a deck that are being talked about quite a bit. It's kind of like a perfect storm that's brewed here for Dragunities, because Tempest just came off the ban list and all the Dragunities are wind dragon monsters. Romulus has finally been imported to the TCG in Rising Rampage, and the Guard Dragon engine is mostly untouched on the most recent TCG ban list. That being said, a lot of people are talking about playing Dragunities kind of as like a Dragon Link spam deck, and the deck can definitely make some pretty interesting boards, a lot of interesting plays. As a result, the dual terminal prints of a lot of Dragunity cards are actually quite high. In a previous video, we did talk about Boxia as a card that only has 2 printings that have jumped up a lot in terms of price, and it's actually a very useful card in the deck. Here we're going to look at 3 different dual terminal cards: Phalanx, which is currently like $20, Dux, which is currently $8, and Trident, which lets you pop 3 of your own cards to take 3 cards from your opponent's extra deck, being $25. However, a lot of this is just hype for the dual terminal printings of the card. Phalanx and Dux each has a couple of different prints, and you can get the legendary collection Kaiba version of each of these cards for maybe like $1 or so. You're looking like $5 for all 6 cards. And although the dual terminal versions of the cards do look really, really nice, they're not something that I personally would be wanting to dish out the money on, because you're looking at like $80 to $90 for 3 copies of each card, and that just doesn't seem worth it to me. Also, although Trident is really interesting in theory, I don't believe that it's a very practical card to use, seeing as you have to give up 3 of your own cards just to take those 3 cards from your opponent's extra deck. But like, your opponent still has a full hand of 5 cards, and they're probably still able to go into other monsters in their extra deck. Not to mention that if your Trident is Veilered, you're kind of like dead in the water there. Also with Boxia, when we look at Boxia, it's a good card that is used in the deck. Both the secret rare and the dual terminal versions have been bought off the market. But with Trident, alternatively here, we only see the dual terminal version that's bought out, and you can easily grab the secret rare copy for $1 or $2. So I do think that this is just someone trying to take advantage of the card that does have that dual terminal printing, and not something that's actually speculated to be like a very dominant force in the meta. If you do have any of the dual terminal versions of these cards, I would definitely recommend selling them while they are reasonably high in demand with relatively low quantities in the market, and just pick up instead those lower, cheaper rarities. Okay, next let's talk a little bit about Engage. So Engage is currently still like $20 for the original Dark Saviors print and $15 for the Battles of Legend reprint. I honestly believe that just like for hires, these are cards that you should definitely move now and not hold on to. It's not to suggest that these cards aren't meta, because I still do think that Sky Strikers are going to be a very strong competitive force in the TCG over the next couple of months. But rather, these cards are going to be completely destroyed on the next ban list. The way that Sky Strikers are handled is very, very, very similar to the way that Necros were handled, right? We had that first initial hit where we hit the deck just to stop it from being super abusive, right? So Necros, they lost Jin, similarly to how Sky Strikers lost Hornet Drones because it was being abused in everything. Then everyone thought that the deck was going to get hit really hard, and instead, like that first or second hit, I guess, Necros had Brio put to 2, and then Kagari was put to 1, and the decks were still able to like function, and they still topped, and they still did really well. After that, everyone thought, oh yeah, the deck's like dead now, the deck's gonna be slaughtered. With Necros, all they did was they limited Shrit, so they could still like do all of their stuff, and with Sky Strikers, they just limited multi-roll. And then finally on the next ban list after that, we know that Necros died. They had Shrit banned, they had Unicorn limited, and they had Brio limited. So Necros like wasn't able to compete until a long time after. Like we just recently got Brio back to 3 and Unicorn's still at 1. I would expect very, very similar hits to Sky Strikers on the upcoming ban list. Something like ridiculously hard, probably something like Engage banned, Kagari banned, and Widow Anchor limited, just to ensure that the deck isn't able to function ever again within the next reasonable amount of time. I am expecting the prices of Engage to definitely drop after the Megatins, assuming that the cards are reprinted. Personally, I'm like really hoping that they do all get reprinted as commons. I think it would be absolutely hilarious to play an all-common Sky Striker deck, given how the deck has kind of been notorious as one of the more expensive decks in the game, given how high of a price point Sky Striker Mobilize Engage has reached. If you got the cards for cheap and you want to play the deck over the next month or two, go ahead. But in my opinion, you should definitely not be holding onto any extra copies of Engage at all. Okay, finally, let's talk about Sauravis the Ancient and Ascended, which is kind of like that hand trap, anti-hand trap, that has seen quite a bit more play recently in combo type decks. It serves a very similar function to cards like Called by the Grave, since it's used to protect something like your Draconet, or your Soul Eating Overraptor, or your Armageddonite from being hit by Effect Veiler or Widow Anchor or Infinite Impermanence. It's actually a really useful card. Also, not to like take credit for this or anything, but back when I was playing like Yangzing, I was siding this card to make sure that Zhao 2 could resolve, but that's like beside the point, whatever. Anyways, Sauravis is currently like a $13 to $15 card, which is actually like really high for this card. Like for the longest time, this card was just like a joke of a secret rare, and you were really choked if you pulled it. I remember one of my friends at Locals, Steven, he pulled 2 copies of Sauravis in his box. Those were his 2 secrets. He could have pulled something a lot better, obviously, but he got 2 Sauravis, and we all felt really bad for him. Anyways, this is a card that I do definitely expect to see reprinted in Dual Devastator. However, a lot of you who have it probably have it like just a few copies of it lying around because you were sad when you pulled it and you were never able to move it, or it's just sitting around in your bulk. Or maybe you're really like a big fan of the artwork because it is really nice. It kind of looks like a Kyurem, the Pokemon, for those of you guys who know that. But yeah, just something that you guys should be aware of if you're looking through someone's binder or you're looking through your own cards. Definitely something that you should be aware of the price of. Alright guys, so that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below what kind of cards you guys are looking at on the market right now. I know that there's a lot of stuff happening every hour of every day, so I'd really appreciate you guys helping me to remain on top of everything that's going on in the market so that I can help keep the rest of our viewers as informed as possible. So yeah, be sure to hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed the video today. Next week, I'm going to be looking at some of the cards from Fist of the Gadgets, like the reprints and how I believe those are going to affect the market. And I also want to do a bit of a discussion about Fire Fist, since I personally think that the deck looks really, really cool. And like especially the artwork, it looks absolutely beautiful. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Also, be sure to check out Tombox's coverage of the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship that's going on in Berlin this weekend. He is going to be bringing you guys some discussions with some of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Players in the world and let you know about his experience at the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship. So be sure to subscribe because I'm sure you guys don't want to miss that. Thanks so much, and as always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.